All right, Jamie, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Gearing up for a long Labor Day weekend.
Yep, our celebration.
Yes.
so, um, this is gonna be a good weekend, last hurrah of the summer, and pretty busy week AI wise as well. There's a lot to talk about. Starting with there's a 2025 Time 100 AI list that came out, which we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll also roll into some of the earnings report, particularly the NVIDIA's Q2 FY 2026 earnings that just was released this week.
Yeah, Nvidia certainly has a way of moving markets. We'll head upon a couple of other quick stories. Everything from Elon Musk and Apple to lawsuits. Meta with new partnerships. Google announced some new models, and speaking of models, some new models from both OpenAI and Microsoft. So we'll get to that and a whole bunch more.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. We'll also talk about the use case in the nature, how the AI is being used, as well as some of the new reports that came out, particularly from the Stanford, which talks about how AI is already costing young workers 13% of their job. That and more. A lot to talk about. Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
So, Jamie, this week, let's start with the Time 100 AI list. This report is generated by, of course, the Time magazine, the famous magazine. And they started doing that since 2023. And what they do is they identify 100 kind of leaders, innovators, shapers, and thinkers, and they release that as a list. And this year has been, again, no surprise, a lot of names which have existed in the past as well, about however just about 16. So there are a lot of new names that have also been included in this. Now, there are four categories: leaders, innovators, shapers, and thinkers. Leaders have names like Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Jensen Huang, Matthew Prince from Cloudflare. And I'll talk about that a little bit because Cloudflare, what they've done is they essentially started helping the enterprises monetize their data. So since all of these AI companies and you know maybe other companies as well, they have been like basically crawling to train, right? Or for other purposes as well. That was identified as a problem. What Cloudflare does is it allows the protection from those crawlers. And not just protection, but basically it allows the enterprises to define a price point if somebody wants to crawl their data. And you can pay for that. And that way you're basically monetizing your own data. So, it is becoming popular. So that was one of the examples that's why it appeared on the list as well. And then there is tons of others, Zuckerberg and Alexander Wong and Nat Friedman, who are basically Wong and Friedman are essentially the co-leads for the Meta Superintelligence Lab. And a bunch of other companies like Amazon, Anthropic, TSMC, Midjourney, Mobileye, and others who are included in that leaders category. And then there's innovators. Innovators include, including some artists, like for example, Natasha and Rafiq and Alex, etc. And I'll particularly talk about Rafiq because this, what you see here on the screen is essentially a cover of that list, right? So this magazine, Time magazine, is famous for their covers, and this cover was designed by Rafiq. He's a Turkish American artist, and what he has done is he actually runs kind of a lab. You can say like a media lab, essentially using they train their own models, like fine tune models, etc. They create a lot of digital art. And what they did is they took the 5,000 covers of Time magazine, the past 5,000 Time magazine cover, and they trained the model on that. And this cover that you see on the screen is a representative of what that consolidation of 5,000 covers look like. draws from the past colors and tones and all those things, and that's what it is. And it was basically created like a live kind of a cover, right? So it's like evolving and growing, etc. Although what you see here is a kind of a snapshot.
Yeah, it's interesting in and of itself. I mean, outside of just naming the Time 100 for AI, but like you said, to me, it's like it's almost abstract art based upon previous time covers, and it just speaks to what AI is able to do and interpret, not only like text and imaging, but conveying art from like a culmination of multiple things. So, kudos to the cover and how they came up with it in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, it's like it was pretty refreshing to see that on the Time 100 magazine. There is a short video about Rafiq, and he talks about how they've done it. They show their labs, etc. Pretty refreshing to see how the artists and others are also using. So this list is pretty diverse from that point of view. It also includes a lot more skeptics and warners, right? In terms of the people who have been actually talking about the safety, and they've been warning about some of the dangers, etc. as well. So it includes them, including actually Pope as well, Pope Leo himself, and bunch of other who have been also talking about some of the making sure that we are safeguarding, etc. as well. So this report is actually a lot more diverse. Some of the names are you will find them missing. For example, Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai from Google, right? Satya Nadella from Microsoft, and then also Mustafa Suleiman from Microsoft AI, etc. as well. But just and even Demis Hassab is missing actually. So sometimes you'll wonder that okay, why are those names missing? But well, they have been actually in the previous list as well. So it's not that they have been totally missing. They were on the last year's list, I guess, as well. So some of them are repeat, most of them are not, and they are new entries. They also actually did something called 2025 Time 100 AI Impact Awards in Dubai at the Museum of the Future, which includes a bunch of people, including the artists that I talk about, Rafiq, as well as IBM CEO Arvind Krishna, etc. as well. So, pretty, I would say, good list that has started coming out. Although I've been wondering why does it come out in the summer, not at the end of the year? Uh, but who knows? I think they probably want to keep something mid of the year as well as an action.
Yeah, it's a way of selling more magazines or subscriptions.
Correct.
It's keeping the hype on AI up. Um, so yeah, I think it's cool. Again, a lot of great names and a lot of great recognition across different categories, like the innovators, the people that are actually shaping things. And what I like is the nod to public honorees, as you mentioned. The people that are actually shaping or doing things for good with the use of AI.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are a lot of some of them were a little bit surprising, but there is a reason for that. There's a good blurb about each of them, why they have been included in that list as well. All right, let's talk about a little bit more on the earnings side, Jamie. So this week, actually, Nvidia did the second quarter earnings, and yeah, that's a pretty fitting sound there because Nvidia stole the show, right? I mean, so again, 56% year over year increase and a 6% sequential gain over the prior quarter. They actually posted $46.7 billion as the overall revenue. And a lot of that comes from the data center sales, which is basically $41.1 billion, which is also 56% year on year. And the Blackwell platform, which is one of the new ones, and that has been basically the revenue has been actually rising from that. It's now 17% sequentially in terms of the growth, which talks about basically the robust demand. The gross margin is pretty high, 72.4%, and Nvidia is projecting $54 billion in revenue for Q3, which, by the way, does not include the potential H20 shipments to China. And now let's talk about that. So Jensen Huang stressed the long-term outlook. He dismissed the fears of an AI investment bubble and forecasted $3 to $4 trillion in AI infrastructure spending by the decade's end. Now, with that, you would assume that stock will probably jump 20%, but no, it actually declined slightly. And I'm not saying that that's the most important KPI, but however, it just the reason is there is a market sentiment was a little bit different because particularly there was a fear about okay how the China is an important market for Nvidia as well, and how can that be impacted because of all these restrictions, export restrictions as well. And just to remind everybody that there is actually new kind of this restriction. There is a, for example, now all that sale from Nvidia to China, if you basically whatever you're selling, that out of that 15% of that revenue from the sales has to go to the US government. So that, of course, impact the profitability as well. So, of course, Nvidia does not like those restrictions. It hurts their growth. On the other hand, what China is doing is China also realized that okay, it's not going to help as well in the long run, and they're going to be deprived of the latest technology anyway because those chips which are allowed to be exported to China are basically pared down. So what is happening is exactly what Huang has been warning about. So he has been saying that by putting this restriction, we're just going to help them actually develop that competency because they're not going to sit quiet. And that is exactly what is happening. For example, one of the company, which is a kind of a rival of NVIDIA for Chinese market, Cambricon, it said that revenue surged more than 4,000% year on year to 2 point, like in Chinese yuan, essentially translating to $402.7 million. Now, that's far less in terms of the revenue. But the point is that the companies are actually trying to fill that void in the Chinese market. They understand that growth potential and they're trying to fill that. There are lots of companies who are potentially possible to actually do that. Huawei is, of course, one of them. They are very capable company as well. So, um, overall, that was a story, pretty strong number. And I would say that Nvidia's numbers are basically a leading indicator of where the AI growth is, because of course the GPUs have to be acquired first, but it is also a mix of leading and lagging, right? Companies are not going to pay for it until they are more sure of the demand. So it does reflect that it is a leading, like companies are putting a bet on this, as well as they're buying for the demand that they see in the pipeline. Of course, more lagging indicators are very simple as like hyperscalers revenue from the AI, which is a confirmation of all these demand that yes, it is translating into the business as well. So at this point of time, and I'm particularly mentioning that because there was a report that came out. We talked about that actually that Nanda initiative at the MIT, which talks about 95% of Gen AI pilots, and there has been some misleading, I would say, sensationalization of that. Like it's not like pilots are failing. Is basically 95% of the projects are not leading to the revenue growth which company were expecting. So there is a difference between that failure. It's not a technical failure. It's just about the rapid revenue acceleration that did not happen for those use cases.
Yeah,
But
I
overall,
mean, I come back to NVIDIA. It is a bellwether, as you mentioned before. Not only for the Nasdaq, but for the tech industry, at least those companies that are focused on AI. When you peel back the numbers, the numbers for this, for this quarterly earnings weren't bad. I mean, they had pretty good growth, like 56% year over year growth. They outdid each of the street estimates, whether or not it was earnings per share or revenue. The whether or not you want to call it a blemish or not is the China business, and there is certainly uncertainty there. But if you look at the rest of the numbers, I mean, things are still moving forward with usage of the chips in different countries. It's just where is it going to land in terms of who's buying what in China. So the way I look at this, is read between the lines, is that there's not a slowdown in these foundational organizations that are building models or gearing up for training or inferencing. The demand is still there, and they're still adding to it. So there is this no quote unquote bubble, AI bubble, at least not now. The things that are being shown don't indicate that, at least from NVIDIA, and the lack thereof or the slowdown with NVIDIA as it relates to China. It's not like that went away. There were other companies that stepped in because of things like the trade blockages or just uncertainty around tariffs. So to me, it was good. The market always reacts in some way. And again, we're not a financial advisor show. And if you do look at the way the stock moved, it dropped more than, as of today when we're recording this, which is after the market on Friday the 29th, it's lost more than 3% since the this revenue announcement. So anyway, just a couple of quick thoughts on my end.
Certainly. Long term, a good story.
Yep. So from there, we'll move on to some quick rapid fire news. So Elon Musk never seems like he's not in the news. So he's opened up another lawsuit. This one being a anti-competitive lawsuit against Apple and OpenAI. And you might be wondering, haven't I heard Google in talks with OpenAI? Sorry, with Apple? The answer there is yes, but that's not what this is about. So Musk actually argues that Apple's integration with ChatGPT within the store makes it really hard for other apps to make inroads as far as the App Store in leading applications. So he's calling it a monopolist in terms of generative AI chatbot apps. Totally different than some of the other lawsuits that have come up from Elon Musk, as well as trying to have the takeover um, from OpenAI. So that's news story number one in terms of rapid fire. Rapid fire number two is Meta is in talks with Midjourney for AI imaging and video models. So the talks really, it's a strategic partnership between Meta and Midjourney. Obviously, as you know, Midjourney is known for its cutting edge image and video generation models and tools. So it's been revealed that uh, it's been revealed by Meta that they want to integrate Midjourney's technology into Meta's future products, whatever those things may be. Last but not least, Google rolled out their Gemini 2.5 flash imaging capabilities. If you've been trying some of these things out, you might have seen something called Nano Banana. That's actually what that was. That was the code word for it when they were asking folks to try it. So this is a new AI-powered image model. It lets users perform, precise photo editing via natural language. It keeps the presence of people from one edit to the next, which is a huge issue with any of these AI image editors, because you'll like lose the what that person or what those objects look like. So this preserves that. So it's available within the Gemini app, APIs through Vertex, and as I mentioned before, preserves those facial details and being able to blend various different images together. So it did score very high on the LM Arena, which I mentioned. That's where the Nano Banana code word for the model was there. By the way, one last thing, it does use watermarks and it injects metadata to deter misuse of those objects or images that are being created.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Nano Banana was everywhere. And
Yeah.
interesting name. I don't know what it represents, but it was it like very impressive results so far what we have seen, and it has really went viral. It's pretty remarkable in terms of the quality and then the thing that you can do with it. All right, let's move on with some of the other news, like parents suing OpenAI over ChatGPT's role in son's unfortunate suicide. This was actually about a 16-year-old teenager who actually took his own life, and apparently he asked ChatGPT about the ways in which you can commit a suicide, and initially it refused, but then he kind of manipulated it and said that no, I'm just writing a fictional story, and for that actually I'm trying to do this research, and it ended up actually giving those kind of details. um, it's not the first time it has happened, because there has been a similar story about character.ai as well, with pretty much similar story. So it's going to be something that I think is going to evolve as we integrate AI more in our life. These kind of issues will surface, and we don't know where it will go. But I totally agree that I think like the AI companies have to evaluate and see how somebody cannot bypass those measures, because it could be pretty tragic otherwise. In the other news, J. Crew, that fashion brand, it has come under fire for alleged use of AI models. So essentially, when I say AI models, not basically the AI model, but basically the supermodel generated by AI, is basically It's a popular clothing store, and basically what they did is they basically use the AI generated images to promote the brand, and those were not the real people, right? Those models that were in those promos. Essentially, the criticism is that, okay, look, you are using this. There's a widespread belief that a lot of these models have been trained without properly compensating the companies, the models and actors and characters, and that's why it is unethical to actually use those. So there has been a widespread criticism of this, and I think that story will also continue to evolve as people actually adopt AI more in these functions. Moving on, Jimmy, this week also was actually pretty busy, and OpenAI released the GPT real-time model and the real-time API updates. Now, this is very interesting. So, OpenAI already had something called GPT-4 or real-time. Uh, Basically, it's a voice to voice. So essentially, you don't convert into the like voice to text and text to voice. It takes away the time and it increases the latency, but this is a voice to voice. So essentially, you basically talk naturally to it and then it responds back in the voice model. Now, this is pretty good. We have done some of the pilots and prototypes with this. It works really well. But there was a problem in integrating it, etc. as well. And also, this was in preview model so far. Um, what they've done is essentially they have created a new model lineup, GPT real time, they call it. There is no versioning of it. So it kind of replaces that GPT-4 real time preview model. And then they've also released the GPT real time API. So let's talk about the model. It is the most advanced speech to speech model, and it has like more natural expressive speech. It has better intelligence, it comprehend better, it has multilingual support, and the non-verbal cue recognition, like for example laughing, etc., and the other thing that it will recognize well. It also has better instruction following. It more accurately adhere to the developer prompts, and then it also has smarter and more precise tool usage. For example, it can do the asynchronous functional calls without having to wait for that result while it's happening in the background, etc. It also has new voices. So two new voices, Cedar and Maureen, have been included in this model, and which is basically more natural and emotionally expressive. And the existing voices have also been updated. Performance benchmark pretty good. What you can see here on the slide. Like big bench audio, 82.8% accuracy, up from 65.6%, 35 30.5% instruction following accuracy, which is up from 20%. So, and then complex functional benchmark, which is 66.5% functional calling accuracy, up from 49.7%. So, all in all, great model. But it also is cheaper. So, it actually does come with a 20% price reduction. So, it is better and cheaper, and it is also generally available now. The API correspondingly is also available, which basically has easier tool integration, including the remote MCP server support. So yes, you can now include the actually MCP server as well into the API, and it will use the available tool from there. It also can take the image as an input. So it basically provides you the multimodal conversation. You have something called Session Initiation Protocol, SIP, which basically helps you connect to the phone networks and devices. And I remember, Jamie, that this API has been tested by some of our customers, and the problem is that to use that, when you're creating the agent, now you need to integrate that with the telephony, and that has to be, it could be an Azure communication service, or it could be a Via, things like that. It was a little bit difficult part, more tedious, but with this SIP support, that integration is far more easier now.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I was involved in a couple different projects. A lot of them had to connect into a system called Genesis.
Mm,
So being able to have something that has direct SIP connection, that greatly improves, flexibility, ease of implementation. So that's a really nice inclusion, outside of all the great things around MCP. But that SIP thing is the one that stands out the most to me.
true. Me too, actually, because that was one of the, in fact, the, I would say the reason for it not to move forward, because of that like clumsiness of integration. Also, it has reusable prompts, so you can basically reuse some of the developer instructions and tools, etc., across the prompts and sessions as well. So overall, pretty good. It has some inbuilt safety and privacy feature, and as I said, it's basically 20% price reduction. So that's pretty good as well, because now, as you can see here on the screen, GPT real time is going to be $32 for the input, compared to the GPT-4 real time preview, which was $40 actually for the tokens, hourly tokens. Um, so good update actually from the OpenAI on this, because I think this and they've done this. Let me show actually a quick demo of that voice as well, how expressive it is.
Here's a quick rundown of your last 5 emails from the finance team. The CFO confirmed the Q3 budget review for next Thursday. Payroll shared an updated timeline for bonuses, moving to September 15th. Procurement requested your approval on a software license renewal. 2 invoices from vendors are pending your signature. And finally, a reminder to submit expenses before the end of the week.
I've canceled your old SIM card and ordered a replacement. It will arrive at your home address within 2 business days. In the meantime, your phone is protected from unauthorized use. Would you like me to also enable eSIM so you can stay connected right away?
More importantly, Jamie, there was actually a pretty good demo on the website of the OpenAI. I just want to actually include that as well.
Hey, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you clearly. How can I help you today? I want you to tell me a story about a lost robot in 5 sentences, and I want you to use different emotions for each sentence, in this order. First fear, then sadness, then curiosity, then joy, and finally excitement. Go ahead. Oh no! The little robot wandered into the dark forest, trembling. It sat down, its circuits whimpering, feeling so alone and forgotten. But wait, what's that strange glow over there in the bushes? It's a friendly firefly, blinking happily at the robot. Together, they zoomed through the forest, beeping and flashing with excitement to find the robot's home. Thank you, that was great. So now I'm going to do something, and I want you to do the same as me. So I can start in English, then puedo hablar en español y después cambiar en français comme si de rien n'était. À toi maintenant. Dis-moi ce que tu peux faire switching entre idiomas con el acento correcto as I'm doing now. Sure, I can do exactly that. Switching smoothly entre idiomas con el acento correcto, comme si c'était naturel et sans aucun problème. Just let me know ce que tu veux que je fasse, and I'll handle it con mucha precisión. Thank you, that was perfect. I'm glad you liked it. What would you like to do next? That's all for now. Thanks. You're welcome. If you need anything else, just let me know. Take care.
So those sounded great. Definitely great improvements from previous voices coming through, either from the GPT-4o real time or even some of its predecessors. So huge leaps and bounds, certainly from what I just heard there. I'm eager to try it out because I know I've got a couple use cases that literally just came up this week, and especially with the SIP integration, that just makes things a lot easier. So eager to try it out. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about some things around Microsoft. So 2 fairly big announcements here this week. The first off is actually with the responses API. So more for our developers that are listening to this. OpenAI came out with what I'll call the successor to the chat completions API. It's called a responses API. There's a lot of things underneath the cover, but it's really meant to make developers' life easier. Probably the big things that stand out, it's capable of being stateful, which if you've built anything with APIs before, you know that there is no state in the chat completions. It also handles multi-turn conversations for you, which basically means as you send in your prompt and get the response back, do you use that output again as context for your next prompt, basically as you continue to interact with the model. So all that is taken care of you through the responses API. So that's a great thing, less that you have to worry about. It obviously supports the latest models in terms of GPT-5. It's got a wealth of built-in tools, and you could use multiple tools in these calls, everything from like doing file search to function calling. You got the ability to do code interpreter, computer use. Again, that's the ability to spin up, browser like capabilities for interaction, image generation, and last but not least, obviously, being able to do remote MCP calls with Model Context Protocol into the servers. So there's just a wealth of things that you can do with the Responses API. And like I said, yeah, going to have tons of fun with these new sound things. So yeah, definitely a big applause for that capability. And the last but not least around that, it is enterprise ready. Again, the reason why we didn't go GA directly when OpenAI put it out there is all the other things that Microsoft does around security within Azure, ensuring that there's a scalable infrastructure around that as well. And just to remind everybody, this is part of a larger stack. So if you're building complex AI based solutions that focus on Gen AI, you not only have the ability to tie back into the responses API, but you can also build agents through the Azure AI Foundry. Obviously, there's also the capabilities using open source tools in terms of semantic kernel and using that in conjunction with the responses API. So again, it's now available as of 2 days ago and supported it in all of the regions. So start using it if you haven't tried it already.
I think this is going to be popular because a lot of customers are waiting for this, and I think this allows these kind of announcements actually allow people to build better apps and use cases. So I know my I know several customers who are actually waiting for this one. So I think this will be huge. All
Yep.
right, let's talk about some of the other things, Jamie, as well. There are my models, and my models, not my basically. I did not build them, but basically the my MAI, Microsoft AI models. Yes, and this is not Phi. This is basically new class of models, and this is basically the large language models. And we have been speculating about that, right? I mean, there has been a lot of speculation about it for months, actually. To be honest, it was expected at build. So it has been delayed, but now it is out here, and now we can talk about it finally. So my has two models, MAI. I don't know, is it called my or they still calling it MAI? Uh, but they basically have my voice one, which is basically an expressive and natural speech generation model. It already actually powers Copilot Daily podcast and the new Copilot Labs experience. So it is capable of generating 1 minute of audio in under a second on a single GPU. So it's very light, very efficient, and very expressive. So this is something that Mustafa Suleiman actually announced because it comes from the organization that he leads, Microsoft AI, and it is already being used within the Copilot actually to a certain extent. So they've been already trying this out, dog fooding this. And then the other model is my one preview model, which is it's in preview, of course. So it is the first foundation model, which is trained on 15,000 NVIDIA's H100 GPUs. This is a mixture of experts model designed for instruction following and helpful responses. It is available for public testing on LM Arena, where you can actually try different models and then rate them, etc. And then it is also available to some trusted testers via the API access, which has to be applied, and it is a gated access. It will also be integrated into the Copilot for the select text use cases. So it's of course a new foundation model. This is not available in Azure AI Foundry, for example. I just checked today as well. It is only available on the LM Arena, but you can also apply for the access through the form as well. Um, One of the thing about this is that this foundation model, since it is already in LM Arena, and as of today, just 30 minutes back, when I checked the last status, it was actually on the text LM Arena and it was showing at number 15 and tied with Google Gemini Flash model 2.5. So not bad, I would say, for a start, because remember that the top 15 models that it is competing against that includes several versions of OpenAI, Chat GPT, the GPT models as well as the Gemini models, etc. as well. So not bad for a start. I think this is promising, and I'm pretty sure that it will actually gain good ground. It is going to find some. It is, of course, has been tested very limited right now, just few days out, but it could rise actually in the rankings pretty well.
Yeah, what's interesting on that, I looked at the Element Arena earlier this morning, and it was at 13. So I mean, it'll fluctuate a little bit as people are using it, testing it. But even to be in the top 15 after, just coming out, and the first true foundational model at scale from Microsoft. So it'll be interesting to see how it progresses and what revisions or later additions to the model gets put out there.
Yeah. So okay, so that is all from Microsoft. Quick thing, Jamie, I just want to quickly talk about a use case of AI, which I found interesting, right? I mean, we've been talking about different deployments and AI use cases, and this is related to a promising story where basically there is a native frog called red-legged frog. It was abundant in California earlier and Baja California, but it has declined due to the habitat loss, invasive bullfrogs, and diseases. Now, there are a couple of professors and academics who have been trying to restore this population since 2006. And what they're doing is they've actually got some frog eggs. They were transported from Mexico to California during the pandemic, and then they have been like essentially trying to restore them in that habitat within California. Now, to find out whether it's working or not, what they usually had to do was they had like the mic basically installed near those habitats, and then you have to review the hours of audio recordings to see if you can hear that particular frog. Right, red-legged frog has this distinct sound, which required hours and hours of reviewing that and identify whether it was whether they were recorded or not. With the AI, they were able to actually now do that way too faster, and they were able to recognize that yes, that red-legged frog is now actually restoring. So there are now many, like estimated 100 adults now, which is a big number compared coming back from the brink of the extinction. It's another good use case of how you can use AI to expedite your efforts and make the whole story much better and restore some of the nature's balance as well.
I'm kind of smirking and smiling. 'Cause I do live by some natural habitats with frogs, and there always seems to be like multiple frog voices now. And I'm actually going to do that, do a little recording and send it into the model to see what it hears. And there's a lot of other noises as well. But yeah, from a science perspective, I think it's a great way of, again, using AI to really help distinguish, understand, and further advance the science that we have, whether it's human-based science or science as it relates to our natural habitats and animals that live or used to live or somewhat impacted by man's own doings. So again, great way and great use of AI.
True. And sorry to break it, Jamie, but after that good news, we have to share a little bit of a gloomy report that came out actually this week from Stanford University. One of the professor, he has been running this study, and it says that AI is already costing young workers 13% of their jobs. If I share that with my kids, they'll be very upset and they blame me, to be honest. And I say, hey, I'm just a messenger. Um, so essentially, this study, a Stanford study, this was led by Professor Brynjolfsson. I think it's a Swedish name, maybe. Um, it basically talked about a 13% drops in entry level jobs, and they're likely to be automated by AI since late 2022. It's also built upon a report from Signal Fire, which reports basically 25% decline in entry level tech job at major firms in 2024. And the reason the entry level jobs are particularly hit because entry level jobs, of course, lack company specific knowledge and the org influence. And these roles are way easier to actually automate due to their routine nature. So, the reality is that, yes, it does impact, the jobs are impacted with AI, but look out for new opportunity that it will also be creating. Jensen Huang talked about it that, in his view, that AI will actually create a lot more new jobs. It will also create a lot of wealth. There will be a lot more millionaires who will come out. They will build the AI apps, and they will. So there are opportunities as well. I don't want it to be just a that okay, this taking away. It's essentially will be the shifting grounds, right? Some jobs will certainly be going towards the automation, and it will be less, but there will be more companies, there will be different kind of jobs maybe coming around, and the priority of the jobs will be changing as well. There's a lot more focus now on the jobs that require physical work, right? Or those kind of like for example nursing and pharmacy and things like that. A lot of healthcare jobs are still like growing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's interesting. It's based upon any study or any way that you look at numbers. Yeah, I think it's inevitable to say that, yeah, there's going to be some shift in the way entry level jobs are going to be impacted, and it's going to be dependent certainly on the class of industry and the type of work that's being done, and obviously anything in the tech related world will probably see that first. Is it 13%? Is it 10%? Is it 5? Is it 3? Is it 23? We'll see. Every study is slightly different, but I think that the bottom line is that there will be some shifts, and it goes back to how you embrace and how you prepare yourself as a whether or not you're seasoned or just entering new into the job market. It's how you understand, prepare, and how you present the things that and I know that we've said this multiple times, and I've said it. It's not AI that's going to take your job. It's someone that knows AI. So it's a matter of you really being able to leverage the tools that are out there now, and present yourself in the way that you understand and know how to use them. So keep that in mind for any of our young listeners that are listening to this episode.
Yeah, and do leave your comments, etc., and you can contact us as well. If you need any mentorship, if you have no guidance whatsoever available, our lines are open. We've talked with many people. I do talk to a lot of people, including just today, actually. Like, people need some advice, right, in terms of the how to find, and like they want to understand, they want to talk about it. And I recognize that many times people do not know whom to even talk to, right? They don't have the access to those kind of and that's why I'm I think it is something that's why we do this podcast. We also share those career tips, and we are also open to actually providing any advice if somebody really needs to understand how to shape their career.
Yep, exactly. Well said. Well said. Have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy your holiday, and till next episode.
Bye everyone. Bye Jimmy.
Bye bye.